Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is Friday, October 8th, 2021. Today it's actually cold outside, for once. And I think it's supposed to be cold just today, and then tomorrow we're getting right back to that beautiful sunshine. It's actually not that bad this time of year where I live, but we basically get I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of this kind of 70, 80 degree weather, and then it drops down into the 50s. And then before that, it's, up in the triple digits. So my mom always liked to say that we really only have two seasons here, summer and winter. And it is a long, long summer. California bans secret condom removal during sex and enhances punishment for spousal rape. I think I've touched on this before because this story came up in an earlier episode, and my main response was, how are they going to enforce it? Because it seems to lend itself to that similar he said, she said situation that rape cases often end up in, and why a lot of rape victims will choose not to press charges because of the lengthy and complicated trial proceedings that can happen, especially given the potential to have to relive your trauma when testifying and stuff. So, this is certainly great. They had an interesting program on NPR yesterday. I was listening to on the way home from work that had Anita Hill and Dr. Blasey Ford on, I think that's her name, and the one who testified against Kavanaugh, and just about how common the sexual assault is and sexual harassment is, and how there was a really interesting part in the program where the interviewer asks, like, why do you think people don't believe you, or why do you think they didn't believe you? And Anita Hill says, well, they did believe us. They certainly believed us. They just don't want to come to terms with what this means. And boy, man, she seemed. I've never really listened to her talk much. Of course, I know about what happened with her and Clarence Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas, and stuff. But I've never heard her really talk about it, and it was really interesting to hear her perspective on things. She's clearly had a lot of time to reflect on it. But I don't know, it just, when she said that, it really did kind of just make it crystal clear how pervasive I think this culture of kind of acceptance of a certain level of kind of this type of behavior. And I don't know, we just, and it's not just this kind of behavior. I feel it reminds me of, I first of all, I love my parents, and neither of them would ever harm a fly on the planet. They're both lovely people, but my dad does have some issues and stuff. And I remember one time he was interacting with my nephew, who sadly I don't get to see anymore. And my dad was interacting with him in his kind of traditional hyper masculine way that he was raised. This is how guys interact with each other, and it's a lot of bullying and teasing and stuff. And I don't remember exactly what he was saying to the poor little kid, but it was upsetting the child, and my dad just wouldn't let off. And I got really upset with it. I got really upset about it and was like, dude, I don't want him around my kids if this is how he's going to be treating them. And my mom kind of, I don't know. I think I probably overreacted, and my mom was kind of like, look, it's family, and sometimes we have to look past family's mistakes. We have to kind of let things go and learn to forgive. And I will definitely say that my mom, I think, has codependency issues. But I probably do too, to be honest. And I don't know, but I feel like that a similar kind of dynamic is going on countrywide, where we've all just decided to kind of collectively ignore a lot of issues, despite being very much aware that these are problems. And I guess just lacking the willpower to do anything about them, whether it's sexual assaults or any number of 100 other problems. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. Also, that they included spousal rape with it as well. I wonder if that's a shot at Trump or something, because he, of course, was accused by his ex-wife of spousal rape. Overwhelmed by COVID patients, Alaska's healthcare workers also face harassment. Um, and it's just, I think this has been true since the beginning of the pandemic. I don't know if people recall, a lot of the nurses started protesting some of the conditions and just the treatment and stuff, and then they were being met by counter protesters. And meanwhile, all these companies are, you know, this running these advertisements and these commercials like celebrating our nation's heroes. There's always this disconnect kind of between what's happening like on the ground in the average person's life and what's being talked about in the media and in Washington among our politicians. And sometimes that disconnect is just so wide, right? That gap between the two realities is so wide that you can't help but kind of laugh at the absurdity of it all. Let's see here. ACT criminalizes. Yeah, okay. Well, this was interesting. This is a similar law about non-consensual removal of condoms, although it was passed in Australia. Um, Now, again, I assume that unless there's like video witness testimony or something, these are gonna be difficult cases to prove in a court of law. On the other hand, there could also be, other types of evidence to collect there. So, it was a nice break from everything. Two men rescued after 29 days lost at sea. I, yeah, that sounds about right. I remember reading this story about this guy who had gone on like a nature retreat for like 6 months or something. It was a significant period of time, like right before COVID took off, and then like was coming back into the world in the midst of this pandemic. Um, I don't know why, but that sounds amazing to me. I was always a fan of Henry David Thoreau and that whole idea. Although of course Thoreau was kind of full of himself. Um, but I kind of disconnecting from, especially nowadays, with how constant it all is, and the temptation of having the computer in your pocket with access to unlimited information at all times. My phone is kind of busted right now. The microphone on it stopped working. So I can still text and I can still do everything on it. I just can't like accept calls or make calls, which is fine by me because I don't like talking to people anyways. And my mom is like, "Okay, we're gonna see about getting you a new phone because of course I'm broke and she she still pays for my phone. You guys, it's so sad." But I told her, I was like, "Look, don't get me a new phone. Don't give me one. I don't want to talk to people. Plus, I'm considering not getting a smartphone and going to something or getting something really limited, um, like with a really limited data plan, so that it's like okay, once I've used up my internet time, that's it, kind of thing. Just because I feel like it's becoming a bit of a distraction. I'm not that bad. I'm really not. Um, my wife on the Instagram scrolling. Oh my gosh. See, I don't use like the Reddit app or anything like that. I use the website, and there's no scrolling on the website. You got to actually click the little button to go to the next page. That extra bit of labor, I guess, is just enough to keep me from just doom scrolling the entire day. But I don't know, having that sense of escape from it all and trying to reconnect with the natural world. you're certainly going to be doing that out living on the ocean, right? There's really no choice there. Um, Now I say all this, and this is like a common kind of characteristic with me, I think, where I in my head and my outlook on life is very different, I think, from what I actually enjoy, like, and what I don't know, because I hate the outdoors. I don't hate the outdoors. Um, I love the outdoors, but I also hate the outdoors. It's this love hate relationship. So I would say like, yeah, let's go, live in a tent for 6 months. But after like 2 days, I would probably be bored to death of it. Um, but I wouldn't mind, a little bit of a break. I say after we just had like a whole year away from society, right? Student arrested in Texas school shooting released from jail. So my students are now transitioning into writing their own research papers, and one of them has selected the topic of school shootings, and quite a few of them are also writing about video games and violence. I hate this. I tell them you can write about anything you want, and then they end up kind of choosing these cliche essay topics, and I'm like, really, this is what you're interested in? Occasionally I do get students who really embrace the idea of getting to choose their own topic to write about. Like I had this student write an amazing essay about Star Wars a few semesters ago, kind of comparing the older Star Wars to the newer ones, and examining what some of the changes in how the movies were made and what the movies emphasize, the even the cinematography and stuff. He was comparing the two and making an argument about what this says about kind of changes in American culture and in the American audience, basically. Really cool essay. And he loves Star Wars, so that's why he chose it. I wish more students would do that. But instead they choose school shootings, which maybe it is a topic that's really close to their heart because, it's so common. And that was the general sentiment yesterday, was just how normalized it all seems, how desensitized we've all become to it. Although clearly it still makes the news, right? At least some of them do, not all of them. I think when there's a lot of like video and stuff to go along with it, it's more likely for it to get the kind of coverage that this one is getting. And there's a video going around of presumably the shooter and another student getting into a fight, um, either the day of or the day before the shooting. And there are there's still a lot of, I think, a lack of clarity surrounding what exactly happened. Um, some people are, of course, angry that the student is being released from jail, but he was released from jail on bond. Um, I think they're going to be making a self-defense case. I don't think that'll hold up very well, especially because the teacher was shot. Um, so yeah, I think from what I've heard, everybody is still alive. So that's the good news, I suppose. That's the good news. Tesla moves headquarters from California to Texas. I'm totally okay with that. You can have the crazy Musk dude. Um, I don't understand the obsession with him. He seems like a loose cannon who's you know I'm kind of surprised. He kind of reminds me a little bit of and wasn't this guy like assassinated not too long ago, or he died somehow? I may have read that on some conspiracy theory website, but he was the creator of one of these security programs, these computer security programs. I'm trying to remember which one it was now. But really wealthy, but then he got like really crazy and turned to a lot of conspiracy theories, but he was also like traveling around the world engaging in a lot of criminal behavior. And McAfee, John McAfee, that's his name. And but yeah, Musk kind of reminds me of that type of character. Seems really um, unstable and just kind of an asshole too. And I don't understand the idolization of him. Um, Maybe it's just the wealth aspect. Maybe it's because he is kind of like this edgy teenager, so he appeals to that crowd. I don't know, but you can take him, Texas. We do not want him. Senate report details Trump's, especially after what he did with COVID and trying like complaining about the COVID protections and stuff and trying to bypass them and just treating his workers like utter crap. Anyway, Senate report details Trump's pressure campaign at Department of Justice to overturn the 2020 election. So the new report details numerous instances of Trump trying to explicitly get the Department of Justice to overturn the election in one of many ways, with help from some members of Congress and some obscure lawyers from like Pennsylvania and stuff. But it's very clearly. I mean, if you didn't already know, he was interested in overthrowing the election. And installing himself as permanent president of the United States. Interestingly, I believe the Republicans released an alternative report that. So interestingly, this doesn't mention anything about the Republican released report, as far as I can tell. But I believe that they did release a report trying to exonerate Trump or trying to defend Trump in this instance, saying that, hey, he's concerned about the election security. He thinks the election is not legitimate. He was looking into ways to do it, and I don't even know if the report goes that far. But that ultimately he listened to his advisors, which shows that he is, a stunning example of integrity, kind of thing. So, in other words, it doesn't look like we're gonna, come to any resolution anytime soon regarding Trump's culpability for January 6th and for his crimes committed within that lame duck session. Serial killer lured on social media by a friend of a victim gets 160 years. Wow, that sounds like a fascinating story. So the friend of the victim managed to trick the serial killer into coming. Wow, it says prosecutors presented evidence at the trial that Wheeler Weaver, then 20, used the dating apps to lure the women for sex and then strangled them. So I'm assuming that the victim's friend used the same exact dating app to lure the guy. That's pretty brave, pretty amazing, pretty cool. CNBC, U.S. September's jobs report badly misses expectations with payrolls increasing by just 194,000. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem that bad to me. I'm sure it'll pick up again soon. Or, the economy crashes and everything goes to shit again. That's totally a possibility too. In fact, I'm kind of leaning more towards that one at this point. I think people really underestimated the kind of lagging effects of the pandemic that we're only starting to really see now, and how it's going to be with us for a while. I think it's like we have such a short attention spans now. We can't even contemplate the idea of like long lasting effects of something. We just think, okay, we got the vaccine now. Everything is over. Everybody take off their mask. Everybody go out and celebrate. Everybody just go out there. Where's all the jobs at? Kind of thing. And it's like, you guys, that's not the way it works. But yeah. And again, I blame the smartphone. I blame Apple. It's all their fault. That's why I'm gonna get my trusty Nokia. Woman sentenced for getting too close to bears at Yellowstone. That's better than the alternative, I guess, of getting too close and getting mauled by the bears. I don't understand why people do this. Am I odd in being terrified of large animals? I'm terrified of small animals too. I'm such a little baby. It's weird. Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. Again, I'm all over the place. I'm just so very inconsistent. Woman 18 shot by school officer removed from life support. So it's talking about school shootings. I think we saw the initial story for this one a while back. And apparently there was like a fight at a school, and as one of the people involved in the fight was fleeing from the scene in a vehicle, this school officer fired into the car and shot this woman, shot her in the head, and she's now dead. So again, she's fleeing. She's running away or driving away, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how you do that. Just even being around guns makes me feel weird. I don't know. House Capitol attack panel subpoenas key planners of Stop the Steal rally, yet Trump is telling everybody not to testify, not to ignore the subpoenas, and it's going to be interesting to see how all of that progresses. I would love to see them pull out the sergeant at arms and start arresting people, but that's not going to happen. Sadly, it's not going to happen. Unprecedented video leak shows rampant torture at Russian prisons. Doesn't seem all that surprising, but let's just remind ourselves that there was rampant torture at American prisons as well, although I guess they were kind of located in Poland at the time, maybe, sort of. They're probably all over the world at this point. But I don't know. It's I wish we had a president who would like when the media would like focus on a story like this, just be like, and Trump did that actually, and there were some things that Trump said. I'm not sure I agree with my dad on this one, but here's an example of my dad agreeing with Trump, and it was when Trump was criticizing soldiers, kind of like calling them stupid, basically. Now, I think this was based on somebody reporting that Trump had said this, so he allegedly said it. Totally sounds like something he would say, but basically calling them stupid for signing up for the military. And my dad's like, yeah, I agree with him there, and yet Trump was getting flack from it from the left. Whereas I think traditionally the left would probably agree with that. That yeah, the military has preyed on poor and minority people for a long time and taken advantage of them, and that the people who do sign up for the military to kind of serve their country thing are clearly have no understanding of history, and so I don't know. It was one instance where my dad agreed, and I remember Trump was calling out the U.S. for doing something, like, hey, the U.S. does that shit too, and again, people were like, oh, how dare he criticize America? And it was one instance where I'm like, yeah, I wish we had more presidents that did that kind of stuff, that were real and honest about what America has done and continues to do, and tries to make some effort to stop those things instead of continuing the drone attacks and bombing children. I don't know. Every time America points the finger, it's just hard for me to take it seriously. Montgomery County deputy arrested, charged over oppression during traffic stop. Cool. Sounds good to me. When Facebook went down this week, traffic to news sites went up. Well then, I don't know if that's a good thing. My initial reaction there was, hey, that's good. That means they're probably getting a more accurate reflection of things. But no, because, I mean, that's the thing that I wonder about this Facebook thing. Is, okay, so you get rid of Facebook. Let's say Facebook was gone tomorrow. The stuff being shared on Facebook is coming from other websites. And the problem is that they're only getting the stuff from the websites that they already agree with. And another problem is that a lot of these websites are just disseminating total crap. And sometimes it's propaganda intended for political purposes. Sometimes it's just a scam intended to make money. But like those websites will still exist even without Facebook. Now, I guess Facebook, you're not going to have that place that kind of collates them for you, and also the AI that the algorithm that um, feeds you all that stuff, right? But people will still seek it out. I guess they may be more likely to come into contact with stuff. In one of the studies I was reading, it said people, that's not the case actually. They do come into contact with a lot of news that they don't agree with. Um, but that's actually one of the points is to get people angry. So it's not that they're just being given news that they agree with. It's about the framing of the alternative perspectives. But I think even sometimes when these things are framed fairly, it's just that they disagree with it. And that there's a problem because a certain segment of our population cannot disagree civilly. Um, cannot kind of operate within a democracy with some give and take. Uh, so I don't know. I do think that stricter regulations for Facebook and stuff would probably help, but I still think that there's a deeper problem here, a deeper issue here that needs to be addressed. Um, and it's entirely possible as well that going after these social media companies will backfire even more in terms of further entrenching people in their views because they view it as censorship. Um, and I also imagine that it's going to be like whack a mole in that if they shut down Facebook, there's probably going to be another site that pops up in its place, kind of thing. Maybe that's not true, as we've seen, like with oh, I forget the name of the right wing social media company that was basically shut down because they couldn't find any service providers. Uh, Parlor, I think was the name of it, and maybe it's still up. I think they did finally get back up and running, but they struggled there, and so maybe that's not the case that it would be like whack a mole, but um, I don't know. I kind of wish, funny thing is, I actually created a Facebook account this last week. I feel so, it felt so dirty doing it, but I was trying to get a hold of a past friend that I had lost touch with, and I don't have his number anymore, and it was the only way that I knew how to get a hold of him. So I now, I guess, have a Facebook account, although I'll probably just go and delete it now that I have the guy's number. Attack submarine USS Connecticut suffers underwater collision in Pacific. Are they the ones that ran into the oil pipelines? Are they the ones to blame? Or was it another kaiju Godzilla creature that's living out there in the Pacific? Hopefully it's nothing serious and everybody made it out safely. Biden administration releases alarming reports on climate change challenges. And meanwhile, Democrats in Congress are holding up legislation that would address climate change. Like, what do we do? There's nobody representing our interests, right? Well, I think the problem is that there are people, but that the Senate was so broken because it was designed to be broken. Um, that's not entirely true. Again, on paper, and I think early on, it made perfect sense and was probably necessary. But then it was really the evolution of the Senate that got us to where we are. So I don't necessarily blame the founders themselves, but it was still, I think, created out of a fear of the masses and this desire to have a bit of a buffer. And that speaks to their elitism, right? But I don't know. It just feels more and more like just the people, uh, the American people seem to be pretty dang smart. If you look at polling on various issues from climate change to gun control, there's a lot of support for smart policy. Policy that's backed up by evidence, by scientific data, and yet we just can't get that policy enacted through law. So there's something has to happen. Something has to break. So, yeah. Coors, protect our West. Our love for this country spans from coast to coast, and right now our country needs us. Help us as we protect our West. Hee-haw, America! Coors, buy Coors Banquet to help support wildland firefighters. I love seeing these ads, man. And then, I don't know enough about this company, but I'm sure they've done something to fuck up our planet, or to screw over workers, or to just do something really, really evil. So, yeah. Oh, this is terrifying. This is just horrible. More than 120,000 U.S. kids orphaned with death of caregivers during the COVID-19 pandemic, study finds. And people are still out there calling it a hoax, not wearing masks, not getting vaccinated, while kids die, while kids lose their parents. That's the problem that needs to be solved, not Facebook. It's this segment of our population that seems to lack any and all sense of empathy, sympathy, desire for progress, desire for a better welfare, better future, that seem to want to take us back into the dark ages. That even will find glee in this situation, will celebrate this for whatever reason because it helps their narrative or whatever. That's what we need to solve. I don't know how to solve that, though. It's not as easy as just flipping off a switch like it is with Facebook, which is why I often think they turn to these kinds of solutions, is because it seems like this thing that we can easily manage to solve, right? We can just flip the switch or pass some basic regulations, and yeah, I think honestly it really starts with addressing inequality and poverty, and that's probably why we will never do it, because that's just too much of a threat to the entrenched interests in the world. Maybe we can find some uplifting news to leave off the week with, so that we can go into the weekend not too depressed, right? Here we go. Maya Angelou, Sally Ride, and other trailblazing women will be featured on U.S. coins. Fantastic. More symbolic gestures. Okay, no, we're going to celebrate it. Yay! Yay, we're finally making progress towards, celebrating these strong women leaders from our history. And hopefully we can continue that into the future so that young girls like my daughter can grow up feeling as though they too matter. Anyways, you guys, that's going to be it from me for today, October 8th, 2021. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.